There are some cells which are surrounding the guard cells, which are distributed in the epidermal cells only, and they are called as the subsidiary cells. Hairs that arise from the root, we call it as the root hair. But trichomes are also hair-like structure, and they usually arise. Root hairs are always unicellular. Trichomes can be multicellular, and also they can be branched sometimes. The xylem is the water conducting tissue and the phloem is the food conducting tissue. Hello everyone, a warm welcome to this session on class 11th biology for CBSE. I'm Dr. Divya, biology faculty, Vidhyaashram School of Excellence, Mysuru. So in this session, let us learn about the topic, the tissue system in plants under chapter 6, that is anatomy of flowering plants. So we'll learn about the general characteristics or some of the tissues that are present in the plants, and then we will move on to learning some of the MCQs under this particular topic. So to begin with, we'll start with the tissue system. So usually plants, on their basis of their structure and location of the cells that are there in them, the cells perform or they group together to perform a particular function. Say for example, the epidermal cells. So the epidermal cells usually will be present on the outer surface of the plant, so that the entire plant will get covered and it will get protected. So therefore, on the basis of their structure and location, the tissue system in the plants are divided into three main types. One is the epidermal tissue system. So epidermal tissue system, it forms, or it is called as the dermal tissue or the epidermis. Epi means outside, derma means layer or skin. So therefore, it is the protective covering that is present outside the plant body. So it is the epidermal tissue system. And next comes the ground or the fundamental tissue system. So below the epidermis, what all cells are present or what are the different tissues that are present, we call it as the ground tissue system. That is, it is placed between the epidermis and between the endodermis, or it is placed between the epidermis and the vascular bundle. So whatever cells are placed there, it comes under the ground tissue system. Next is the vascular or the conducting tissue system. Conducting. So the vascular tissues, they conduct food and water. For example, the xylem is the water conducting tissue and the phloem is the food conducting tissue. So they are placed right below the ground tissue, wherein below the endodermis they will be placed. So this forms the xylem and the phloem. Together they form the conducting tissue or the vascular tissue. So about these we have to study one by one. So talking about the epidermal tissue system. So now I told you the epidermis, which is called as the outermost covering of the plant cell. It covers the entire plant, right? So here this epidermis not just forms the entire or the outermost covering of the whole plant body, and it is made up of what type of cells is it made up of? So they're made up of epidermal cells. These epidermal cells are nothing but parenchymatous cells, but their shape is different. They are barrel shaped. So they form the outermost covering of the whole plant body. They are made up of, in the epidermal tissue system, it's not just the epidermal cells that are present. Apart from that, they also have the stomata and they have some epidermal appendages, which are called as the trichomes and the hair. So trichomes, in the case of stem, the hairs that are there, we call it as the trichome, and in the root we call it as the hairs. So we'll study about each of these one by one. So what are these? They are the epidermal tissue system. Under that, first we'll study about the epidermis. So epidermis, what is it made up of? It consists of parenchyma cells. Now how these parenchyma cells look like in the epidermal tissue? Of course, in the ground tissue also parenchyma cells will be present. But there is a difference between the shape of the parenchyma cells that are present in the ground tissue with that of the epidermal tissue. So in the epidermis, the parenchyma cells are elongated. They are a bit lengthy, not completely round or oval. They are a bit lengthy and they are compactly arranged cells, meaning they do not have intercellular spaces and they form a continuous layer. So if you can see here, they are elongated. The cells are elongated and you can see there is no spacing spaces absent between the cells. They don't have intercellular spaces, and that is why they are compactly arranged and they form a continuous layer at a stretch like this. So that is how the epidermal tissue looks like, and it is a single layered, and they are made up of, as I told you, they are made up of parenchyma cells. In this parenchyma cells, they have small amount of cytoplasm, and also they have the large vacuole that is present. So this is what the epidermal tissue system is made up of. Epidermis is made up of. So from the epidermis, so I told you epidermis, it forms a protective layer. But in the epidermis, some of the plants, say for example the hydrophytes, that is the ones that live in water. So these hydrophytes, they are always present in water. So what happens in such cases is, because they are always in contact with water, the cells tend to rot, or the cells may lose their shape, or they tend to rot. So in such conditions, the epidermis alone is not enough for the plants to protect itself or protect its other tissues. So in such cases, outside the epidermis, they have a covering which is called as the cuticle. So this cuticle is usually thick, waxy. It is waxy because wax acts like a water repellent. So you rub a layer of wax on your skin, or any oil matter as such, you rub it on your skin and then you pour water. The water will not get absorbed, it will just drop off from your skin, right? So that is how here also the waxy thick cuticle that is there, that which forms the covering of the epidermis, it acts like a water repellent. So it prevents, and apart from that, it also prevents the loss of water, because if there is extra wax coating, if it is there, for example desert plants, so desert plants have a thick cuticle as well. For example the cactuses, why they have a thick cuticle is because so that excessive loss of water is not lost from the cactus, so therefore they have a thick cuticle. So therefore prevention of loss of water also it helps. But cuticle is not present in the roots. They are absent in the roots. Cuticle are present on the epidermis of the stem. They can be present on the epidermis of the leaves, but cuticle is absent in the roots. So this is about the cuticle. So cuticle forms the outermost covering. So this portion that is there, it is nothing but the cuticle. So we finished studying about the parenchyma cells, which are elongated, which forms a thin continuous layer which is called as the epidermis. Above the epidermis is presence of the cuticle. Next we'll study about the stomata. So in the some of the plants, they have distribution of stomata. So what are these stomata? Stomata are nothing but kidney bean-like structures or bean-shaped structures that are present. So these are the structures that are usually present in the leaves of the plant, epidermis of the leaves of the plant, and the stomata will be embedded in the epidermis. So monocots usually have stomata on both sides, whereas dicots have stomata only on the abaxial side, that is the lower side. So that you have to remember. We'll discuss about that in the next coming sessions. So stomata are structures that are present in the epidermis of the leaves, and what is the function of the stomata? So stomata, they mainly help in balancing, or they help in regulating the process of transpiration. So what is transpiration? Transpiration is nothing but the loss of water. So plants need to balance water inside their body. It is not that whatever water is there, the plants do not absorb it. It will lead to a lot of problems or malfunctioning of the cells that are there in the plant. So therefore, sometimes the water needs to be lost from the plant, and sometimes the water should not leave the plant. Say for example, normal transpiration should occur during the rainy season, or when there is excess water in the plants need to lose water, and sometimes they should stop losing water, because it will be a drought condition where there will be water scarcity. So it is at that time, for the process of transpiration, stomata is very, very useful to maintain a balance of losing and gaining of water. For that it is very important. Next is for gaseous exchange, that is for the exchange of gases between the cells of the plant with that of the atmosphere. For that it is very, very important. That is in the process of respiration also, stomata plays a very, very important role in the plants. And how exactly the stomata looks, what it is made up of? It is made up of two bean-shaped structures, and these bean-shaped structures are called as the guard cells. Can you see here? These are the two bean-shaped structures that they are made up of. It looks exactly like a bean seed, right? And they are called as the guard cells. So these guard cells are the ones that actually open and close, facilitating transpiration and facilitating exchange of gases. And in between the guard cells are open, a pore gets formed here. That is a gap. If you can see here, there is a gap, right? That is called as the stomatal pore. It's called the stomatal pore. So what do they have? They have two bean-shaped cells which are called as the guard cells, and the guard cells, when they are open, they actually form a pore which is called as the stomatal pore, and the guard cell is covered by two layers. It's not covered by two layers. It is covered by a layer wherein the layer that is present towards the outside of the guard cell, if you look here, it is thinner, and the layer that is present towards the inside of the guard cell, can you see this layer? It is thicker. So they are made up of a layer wherein the outer walls of the guard cells, which are away from the stomatal pore. So the outer wall of the guard cells which are away from the stomatal pore are usually thinner, whereas the inner ones are usually the thicker ones. And apart from that, in the guard cell, they also possess chloroplasts which help in the process of photosynthesis, and also these guard cells regulate the opening and the closing of the stomata, which is very, very important for the exchange of gases and for the transpiration, regulating the transpiration process. So this is the structure. This is very, very important, which usually comes for the exam along with the diagram. Apart from that, there are some cells which are surrounding the guard cells, which are distributed in the epidermal cells only, and they are called as the subsidiary cells. So these are nothing but the subsidiary cells. So this was about the guard cells or the stomatal apparatus. So in the exam, it can come with a neat label diagram, explain the structure of the stomata or explain the guard cells. You have to draw the diagram, label it, and write the points for that. Next, in the epidermal tissue system, the root arises because some of the cells that are present in the epidermis, or some of the elongated parenchyma cells that are present in the epidermis, they themselves modify to produce the root hairs. And root hairs, they are nothing but unicellular elongations of the epidermal cells, and the main function of the root hair is to help in absorption of water and minerals from the soil. So you can say that, of course, roots are there, right? Isn't that enough for the plant to absorb water and minerals? No, sometimes in some cases the plants need extra water and minerals to be absorbed. So in such cases, it is the root hair that actually helps it. So all these are the root hairs that are there. And from where the root hair arises? It arises from the epidermis itself. So if this is the epidermis, some of the epidermal cells that are there, they themselves, they form the root hairs like this. So that is how it is formed. So this is about the root hair. So next we'll move on to trichome. So I told you there is a difference between the root hair and the trichome, right? Hairs that arise from the root, we call it as the root hair. But trichomes are also hair-like structure, and they usually arise. Root hairs are always unicellular. Trichomes can be multicellular, and also they can be branched sometimes. They can be branched like this sometimes, and they are multicellular. And trichome, usually they are the hairs that arises from the epidermis of the stem. So those hair-like structures which are present on the stem, we call it as the trichome. And they can be branched or they can be unbranched. They can be sometimes soft and sometimes they can be stiff. And some of them can be secretory also. For example, we have an insectivorous plant which is called as the Drosera. So the Drosera trichomes that are present in Drosera, they help in secreting some of the juices which are very, very sticky so that the insect gets trapped. So therefore, they can be secretory also in function. And the main function of the trichome is to prevent water loss, that is during transpiration. Sometimes there will be a drought condition wherein the plant shouldn't lose water. It is at that time the trichome acts like a blanket or a protective layer wherein it prevents excessive loss of water. So can you see here the trichome? All these are the trichomes which are the hair, and you can see the secretions that are there at the tip. They can be water droplets also, and they can be sticky fluid secretions as well. So this is about the trichomes. Next, we have finished with the epidermal tissue system, wherein we studied the epidermis, and above the epidermis there is one more layer called as the cuticle, and in the epidermal cells in between there are stomata present. We studied about that as well, and we studied that some of the epidermal cells, they modify to form root hairs and the trichome. That also we finished. So therefore, it is all these that are there in the which forms the epidermal tissue system. So next, let's move on to those tissues that are present below the epidermis, that is the ground tissue system. So all tissue except the epidermis and the vascular bundle constitutes the ground tissue system. So therefore, this entire thing that you see here, right from here to here, this entire thing, it constitutes the ground tissue system. Now in this ground tissue system, it can be parenchymatous, it can be sclerenchymatous, it can be made up of collenchyma cells, it can be made up of chlorenchyma cells. Again, here also in different species of plants, their arrangement tend to vary. And it consists of simple tissues such as I told you, parenchyma, it can be collenchyma, it can be sclerenchyma. Parenchyma. Parenchyma are those cells which are actually round or oval shape like this with intercellular spaces. Can you see spaces here? They have spaces in between. Collenchyma cells are parenchyma cells only, which are arranged, but they have some depositions in between. Therefore, they do not have intercellular spaces. So that is the only difference. Sclerenchyma cells also have depositions around them like this. So if this is sclerenchyma, around them continuously they have depositions like this. So those are sclerenchyma cells. Next, parenchymatous cells are usually present in the cortex. You can find them in the pericycle, you can find them in the pith, and also sometimes in the medullary rays in the primary stems and roots. So what are these? We will look into. So parenchyma cells, usually they are found in the cortex. So this entire region that is there, no, it is called as the cortex. So you can, in some plants you can find their entire cortex is made up of parenchyma cells. Either it can be collenchyma, sclerenchyma and all that, and usually pericycle. Now pericycle is present below the endodermis. So this is the endodermis. Endo means inside, derma means layer. So the layer that is present, or the layer of elongated parenchyma cells that are present inside towards of the ground tissue, we call it as the endodermis. The other one is the outermost one, that is the epidermis. So below the endodermis, you can find the parenchyma cells between the xylem and the phloem. Say for example, we have xylem and phloem. So this is X, P, X, P, like radial arrangement of xylem and phloem we will have, you think. So in between, like rays, there will be parenchyma cells that are distributed here. So in the which is called as the medullary rays. So parenchyma cells can be present in the medullary rays also, and below the endodermis there is one layer called as pericycle. So that pericycle is also made up of one layer of pericycle is also made up of parenchyma cells only, and inside to the vascular bundle, that is the center, we call it as the pith. This pith can also be parenchyma cells itself. And in leaves, the ground tissue usually consists of thin-walled chloroplast, because chloroplast, that is chlorenchyma cells, we can call them as. Why? Because chloroplast is very, very important in the leaves for the process of photosynthesis. So that is why. And they form the mesophyll. We call it as the mesophyll. In stem, we call it as the cortex. The parenchymatous layer, we call it as the cortex. In the leaf, the parenchymatous layer which contains chloroplast, we call it as the mesophyll of the leaf. So next one, after the ground tissue, we will move on to the vascular tissue system. So what is there in the vascular tissue system? So vascular tissue system consists of complex tissue wherein they have the xylem and the phloem. So the xylem and the phloem together, they constitute the vascular bundles, and they are of different types based on how they are arranged. And we know that the xylem is the water conducting tissue and the phloem is the food conducting tissue. So based on that, the xylem are of different types, but these three are the ones that are important in the PUC. So it is the radial vascular bundle, the conjoint closed vascular bundle, and the conjoint open vascular bundle. So if you can see here, you can see radial arrangement of vascular bundle, wherein you can see xylem, this is xylem, and this patch is the phloem. and you have metaxylem. Metaxylem is always larger in size and protoxylem is smaller in size. Metaxylem here is towards the center, protoxylem is towards the outside. So here this example diagram that I have put here, this shows actually radial vascular bundle because there is patch of xylem, phloem, xylem, phloem, xylem, phloem, like that it is arranged. So this is about the vascular bundle. So we'll study about the different types one by one. So talking about the radial vascular bundle. So here the xylem and phloem within the vascular bundle are arranged in an alternate manner along different radii. It's not in the same radii. So when I say if it is in the same radii, how will it look? It will be like this, okay? It will be xylem, phloem, xylem, phloem, xylem, phloem. See, they are in one line only like this arranged. But it is not in the same radii. It is not in the same radii. But they will be in different radii. Can you see here? For example, I'll just draw it like this. If xylem is here, phloem will be here. Xylem, phloem, xylem, phloem. It's xylem, then again phloem. So it will be like this. It's not on xylem is in one radii and on the one more radii phloem is there. So it's not on the same radii. So that is radial vascular bundle. So if you can see here, we have a patch of xylem, then phloem. So xylem, then phloem, again xylem, phloem, like this arrangement will be there. So that is radial vascular bundle. Next, moving to conjoint vascular bundle. In conjoint vascular bundle, conjoint meaning joining, conjoining. Here, the xylem and the phloem are joined to each other, wherein top there will be the phloem and down there will be the xylem. Again, based on that, in conjoint there are two types: conjoint closed vascular bundle and conjoint open vascular bundle. Conjoint closed vascular bundle are usually seen in monocots, monocotyledon plants. Conjoint open vascular bundle are usually seen in dicot plants. So what is the difference between the two? In conjoint closed vascular bundle, we have a patch of phloem and a patch of xylem, wherein in between the phloem and the xylem, there is no cambium ring that is present. So therefore, it is a conjoint closed vascular bundle that is present usually in monocotyledonous plants. In the case of conjoint open vascular bundle, again we have a patch of phloem, below that there is xylem, and between the phloem and the xylem they have a layer of cambium, or the cambium ring is present. Therefore, it is a conjoint open vascular bundle which is usually seen in the dicot. So, xylem and phloem are jointly situated in the same radius of the vascular bundle, and therefore it is called as the conjoint vascular bundle. And closed vascular bundle is common in the stem and leaves of monocot. Conjoint open vascular bundle is common in the stem and leaf of dicots. And here they have the phloem which is located only on the outside of the xylem. So phloem in the case of conjoint vascular bundle are always located outside towards the xylem. So this is how the arrangement is. So this was about the tissue system. So in general we had studied like what all the different types of tissues, that is epidermal tissue system, then we got to know about the ground tissue system, and then we went in for the innermost, that is the vascular bundle system or the vascular tissue system. So this is important because for the next sessions we'll study about the transverse sections of the dicot, monocot, stem, leaves and the root. So therefore there we can see the arrangement of the cells. For that this is very important. So now we'll look into some of the MCQs that can be framed for this particular topic. So ground tissue includes all tissues except epidermis and vascular bundles, all tissue outer to endodermis, epidermis, cortex and endodermis, all tissues inner to endodermis. So here the answer is, for example, all tissues except epidermis and vascular bundles, meaning it contains only those tissues which are present between the epidermis and the vascular bundle. So option A is the right answer here, because the Ground tissue consists of all tissues except epidermis and vascular bundle. It is not all tissues outer to endodermis. If it is all tissue outer to endodermis means it will include the ground tissue and the epidermis also. So that answer is wrong. Epidermis, cortex and endodermis, no, they are just made up of cortex. They don't have, under the ground tissue, the epidermis and endodermis do not come. So therefore, all tissues inner to endodermis means it will be the vascular tissue. It is not the ground tissue. So therefore, option A is the right answer here. Next, dash is the outermost layer of plant body. Epidermis, hypodermis, cortex, pericycle. It is epidermis. I told you epi means outer, derma means layer. It is epidermis. Hypodermis is usually found in the stem of dicot plants. So it's not that is present below the epidermis actually. Cortex is also present below the epidermis. Pericycle is present inner to the endodermis. So therefore the right answer here is epidermis is the outermost layer of plant body. Next, Casparian strips are found in. So there is something called as Casparian strips which we need to know what it is. So we had learnt, right? So there is something called as endodermis and there is something called as pericycle. So we have the outermost layer which forms the epidermis, then comes the cortex, inner to the cortex we have the endodermis. So in the endodermis are also made up of elongated parenchyma cells. So here they have suberin depositions. Tangentially and radially, suberin depositions like this, it will be present. So if suberin depositions are there, then we call that as a Casparian strips. Okay. So where are these Casparian strips are found in? Casparian strips are found in, is it pericycle of roots, pericycle of dicot? No, these two options we need to eliminate because nowhere in pericycle they are found. So what two options will be remaining? Endodermis of root, endodermis of dicot stem. So where it is exactly present? It is present in the endodermis of roots. So the endodermis of roots, be it a monocot or a dicot, they usually have the Casparian strips that are there, which is nothing but suberin deposition that are present in the endodermis are called as the Casparian strips. So therefore, the option C is the right answer here. Next one. Dash is a waxy thick layer around the epidermis. So in the epidermal tissue system, if you remember, I told you there is a layer which is made up of thick wax. What it is called? It is called as the cuticle. Option C is the right answer. Next one. Which of the following statements is not true about stomata? The question here, I have to find out or we have to find out which among these statements that are given, which is false or which is not true about the stomata. They are present in the epidermis of leaves. Yes, stomata are present in the epidermis of leaves. They are bean shaped. Yes, stomata are bean shaped because they have the guard cells which are bean shaped. They are present in the epidermis of roots. They are present of two guard cells. They have two guard cells. That is also true. The statement that is wrong is stomata, you don't get to find them in the roots. It is absent in the roots. So, option C is the right answer here. Next question. The opening and closing of stomata is regulated by what actually regulates the opening and the closing of the stomata? Is it the guard cells, subsidiary cells, epidermal cells or the stomatal pore? So, the right answer here is guard cells. Option B. Stomatal pore? No, because when the stomata opens, then or when the guard cells open, a stomatal pore is created. Subsidiary cells, those are few of the epidermal cells which are parenchymatous, which are irregular in shape surrounding the guard cells. We call it as the subsidiary cells. Epidermal cells, no, that's also not the right answer because epidermal cells doesn't facilitate in opening and closing of the stomata. Therefore, it is the guard cells that help in opening or regulate the opening and closing of the stomata. Next question. Trichome is it root hair? Is it stem hair? Covering of leaves? Covering of stem? Of course, trichome covers the stem. But again, we can say no, epidermis also covers the stem. So, we can't choose option D here. Root hair is not called as trichome. It is called as hair itself. Covering of leaves? No. So, therefore, the right answer here is stem hair. The hairs that are present on the stem are called as trichomes. Next question. Epidermal cells surrounding the guard cells are called. So, there are some epidermal cells which are present right adjacent or surrounding the guard cells. They are called as Stomatal apparatus, no, the entire stomata, we call it as a stomatal apparatus, which consists of the subsidiary cells, which consists of the guard cells and all that. So therefore, option is wrong. It's the subsidiary cells. Yes, we call it as the subsidiary cells. So those cells, epidermal cells covering the guard cells are present around the guard cell. We call it as the subsidiary cells. Trichome, no, because trichome is a stem hair. Parenchyma, of course, they are parenchymatous only, but there is a particular name for that. It is called as subsidiary cells. Closed vascular bundles do not have. So what they do not have? They do not have protoxylem. They do not have metaxylem. Of course, they have the xylem. They do not have cambium. They do not have protofluum. They do not have cambium because cambium ring is present only in open vascular bundles. It is not in open conjoint vascular bundles. In closed vascular bundles or closed conjoint vascular bundles, they do not have the cambium ring between the phloem and the xylem. Option C is the right answer here. Next, which of these is true about open vascular bundle? So there are a number of statements or options that are given. What is true about the vascular bundle? Open vascular bundle, we have to find out. Again here, it is about the open vascular bundle. Don't get confused. Capable of producing secondary xylem and phloem, surrounded by pericycle without endodermis, possess conjunctive tissue between xylem and phloem, not surrounded by pericycle or endodermis. So here, open vascular bundles, they are not capable of producing secondary xylem and secondary phloem because open vascular bundles, they have a cambium ring that is there, which does not facilitate the secondary, that is xylem and secondary phloem production. They only have one patch of phloem and below that one patch of xylem. So the right option here is option A. So vascular bundles, open conjoint vascular bundles are not capable of producing secondary xylem and secondary phloem. So this is true about the open conjoint vascular bundle. So next question. Thin-walled chloroplasts are found in mesophyll of stem, mesophyll of leaf, hypodermis of stem, hypodermis of leaf. So the word here, leaf, when the word leaf or chloroplast comes, we need to think that, okay, chloroplasts are present in leaf, where below the epidermis of leaves and in the mesophyll, because they have parenchyma cells in the mesophyll which contain chloroplast. So therefore the right answer here is mesophyll of leaf. So the rest options are wrong. Option B, mesophyll of leaf, is the correct answer. So this was about the session wherein we learned about the tissue system in the plants, that is the ground tissue system. Starting from the beginning, the epidermal tissue system, the ground tissue system and the vascular tissue system. And also we got to know some of the MCQs that can be framed under this particular topic. So I hope you understood this session well. We shall meet again in the coming session wherein we'll take up a new topic under this chapter and discuss the MCQs regarding it. So see you in the next session. Thank you.